Good morning, good afternoon, or whatever time of day it is when you watch this. If you watch it, it may be a little bit like watching paint dry if you're into that thing. Hopefully not, but I could understand if it was. So I won't be offended. Um, this is a little bit different. What I did is this is the one where I'm working a puzzle, a jigsaw puzzle. I bought a package of 5 jigsaw puzzles that I thought one day that I may want to frame them because I like the pictures so much. So I've started working that puzzle. I didn't know how long it would take, so this video is quite long. So I interspersed it with my thoughts on God, the Bible, and just random thoughts. And that may not be interesting to anyone, which, like I say, I wouldn't be offended because it's just my personal opinions. Thanks. most mundane task is turning over all the pieces so that they're the right side up. And then I separated all the pieces with the straight edge on them because you know they're the side pieces. So then the next job is to put these side pieces together. And I didn't speak during that, that's not a beer. It's Dr. Pepper. And the next thing I do is decide to put these side pieces all together so I'll have all the edges outlined. And the very best way to go about that is to find the pieces that match, and then you can put them together. And usually you will find quite a few that will fit together. Nope. Nope. I don't even think that fits. I think that goes right there. And it also helps to, since I have 5 puzzles to put together, it also helps to figure out which one that you're working on. Normally, some of them come just in one box, but this came 5 puzzles in one box. So I'm not close enough to figure out which piece I'm working on. But looking at the picture is a good way to help you along too. And I said I may talk about the thoughts that are on my mind while I'm doing this. And I figure that I can, because if you just want to see somebody put a puzzle together, you can turn the sound down and you wouldn't have to listen, because it is a very controversial subject. Speaking of the Bible, to me it's never been a controversial subject. I've always had to deal with it from a very young age, because I used to read it. I would read it from page to page, read a little bit every night. Then I would get to some pages, like all those pages that it said Joseph Beckett begot so-and-so, and Abraham begot so-and-so, and it would go on and on and on and on and on. And that might be the chapter that I was supposed to read that night. And then I would sit back and say, what the hell am I supposed to get out of that? Because it certainly didn't really teach me anything. And as a matter of fact, the thoughts that came from reading that is just to know that man wrote this Bible. Because, of course, all books are written by man. And that was because back during the time when these books were written, it was expensive to put a book together. So damn expensive. So you know who got to write the books? The wealthy. That's who wrote the books. Now, none of this that I say is to divert anyone from their religion. I think religion is a great thing, and it can be used for much good, particularly in the world in which we live in today. It can also be used for much hatred, which is quite a shame. Anyway, back to these wealthy men writing these books. That's why I say you have to look at the Bible as it being written by men. They had some great ideas. Love thy neighbor as thyself. Such a great inspirational statement. Very thoughtful. And you would think that would be something that certainly your ideal of what God would think, that would be one of them. Then you have people talking about in the Bible stoning gay people or married people if you get divorced. You know, that, in my humble opinion, comes directly from rich, wealthy men. And that's why I think you need to be real careful about how, and I'm pretty sure now, it's the bottom picture that I'm looking at. I don't know if you can see that, but I'll show you what I'm looking at. That picture. Now I know it's that one because I've got this finished. Matter of fact, this is this corner. And I'm going to shove some of those pieces out. Okay. Not only the Bible being written by rich men, but also it was written in a time when they had limited medical knowledge, lots of limitations in their knowledge compared to what we have today. And there's some people that like to read the Bible and think that that is what God's saying. Well, I've always thought we each have our free will. As much free will as the men that wrote that Bible. So One would think if you want to believe what God is thinking, your thoughts are just as valid as anybody else that's doing the thinking. And that was the beauty. Hopefully it will still remain the beauty of living in America. The beauty of living in America is that we had always been a nation that believed in free speech, freedom of religion, all those good things. That's why people wanted to come to the U.S. You weren't subject to being penalized because you were brought up that your beliefs are quite different from others. You didn't force your beliefs on anybody else. And it would seem that you wouldn't make fun of others for their beliefs or mention that they should be stoned. I don't think that would be what a loving God would be thinking. And if that was the case, I'd have some big questions about this so-called loving God. And it's hard for me to talk and think while concentrating on this puzzle. That's a few words I'll throw out there. You can chew on those while I'm looking for these pieces. Maybe it is. No. No. I don't think that goes there. I think it does. It looks like it, but the colors just don't match up. That matches. Alright. I know I'm missing some edge pieces. Right, there's that side. Oh, this goes here. No? Yes. I don't know. Clearly I'm missing some side pieces. Probably would have been better if I did it methodically and just pulled out all the side pieces, but I didn't do that. I just want to get them flipped over. Back to the Bible. I think that you, me, are just as capable of putting our ideas down about what the Bible is all about, what God is like, in your opinion. And I know there was some that would say, oh, it's not your opinion, it's in the Bible. Rich man wrote that Bible, in my humble opinion. You have your right not to believe that, but I have my right to believe that they did. And what a bang-up job the rich people are doing nowadays. They're tearing this country apart. All in the name of the Bible and good Christians, but they're filling it with hate-filled rhetoric that, in my opinion, no God would ever be spouting off such crap. In my humble opinion, of course. Continue to go through this. Oh, and did I mention before about those pages that were all so-and-so begot so-and-so and so-and-so begot this one and that and one, and I think that's something, in my humble opinion, that probably these wealthy books, those were like the files that would be in courthouses of all the generations, the census data that might be stored in these places that would probably get saved, and that's why they were found, and the men that found them put them in this book. Quite frankly, I don't think that information would be anything that God would have considered very important, being as supposedly we all came from Adam and Eve. So all that time I spent reading those chapters that were nothing but that stuff, I think it was just a waste of my time by the man that put the Bible together, found the books, reinterpreted them from another language, which in doing that, you even have to consider that some languages don't even have the same words. And I imagine back then they had even fewer words. In some countries, some places, they have had different words to describe different things. But the man that found those books and wanted to reinterpret it into another language, they had to pick and choose which words to use. So that's what they did. Then once they got it all decided, other men went back years later and decided that they'd edit it. Say, no, this isn't the right word. And then there were some people that didn't like some of the books to go in their Bible, such as the Apocrypha. And so they said, let's take that out. I'm not sure. Looking at this, it shows that there's a fence. I don't see a fence on. Oh no, that's probably not a fence. That's those flowers. That might go over here. Maybe. We'll see. And those men re-edited and there was a time when money was really tight and all they put out were individual books because they wanted to spread the word real fast. I imagine it was wealthy men that did that too because they were so expensive. But eventually, some religions said, let's put these books together. Some said, let's leave out the Apocrypha. Some people wrote it how they wanted to interpret it. Mind you, all men, there ain't no book on the face of this earth that hadn't been written by men. And understand, it's all good and fine that you have your opinion of what religion is. I certainly have mine. Or else I wouldn't be rambling. But, and this is where that some people get all up in arms. But the Bible was written by God. And I just don't believe that, period. I don't blame anybody if that's what they want to believe, but I don't. And I never will. Matter of fact, my vision, my interpretation of a God, because, being raised up in a strict, well, it wasn't very strict, because after a while, they didn't go to church. They just had it blaring every morning. Every morning before going to school on the radio. Some wacko job minister that was preaching hell and damnation for all those who didn't follow his ideas of what religion was, in his opinion. Naturally, I had to deal with that whole set of thoughts. But anybody, they go and say they can prove that the Bible was written by God and it's God's word. No, they can't. No, they can't. So just spare me, please. All right. I don't know. Maybe this goes right here. Wow. Okay. So I had that wrong. All right. So that. All right. I'm wondering. I think that is the one. It has to be that one. And one thing about religion too, in my humble opinion, that I believe, is that there's all these books about gods, people's belief about gods and spiritual beings. All these books written by men. When I do pray, because if there's a possibility, then I want to get my 2 cents worth in. But I don't give any of them any more credit, because they're all formed from men's ideas of what they believe this would be. And so when I pray to any, it's not just of the one from the Bible. It might be the one from the Buddha religion. It might be the ones that pray to the moon. It might be, the Indians, they had religious people too. Christianity certainly wasn't the first religion. I just pray to them all. Think of them as being, if there is a good God, good golly, Miss Molly, if there is a good God, then I believe that maybe there's only only one. And all these ideas that men have, they want to claim them as theirs, is bigger and more powerful than the other, then it's my opinion that, well, that's just men trying to be men. And when I say men, I mean everybody. Even most of the people that wrote the books back then would have been men. Certainly, the ones that wrote the Bible, those men did such a disservice to women. Such a disservice. They ought to be ashamed of themselves. And for people to go on, and that's why I say we're all born and have free will, for people to go on and try to use those same men's words to put down other people, in my humble opinion, is quite shameful. Quite shameful. And that's why you get heathens trying to take over the world, especially when they can co-opt a religion and make people believe it's all right to say, oh yeah, we should stone those people. Oh yeah, we should imprison those people. Oh yeah, those people are evil. Absolute bullshit. Hogwash. You're just passing along the lies of the men that decided to write those words down. Back to the census data that was found and put in there that I spent so many hours probably reading. So and so bad. God would not have put that in the Bible. Period. To show lineage, some people's lineage was more important. If we're all coming from Adam and Eve, what the hell's that got to do with anything? And then these men thought it was important to put that shit in the Bible, just so that I would spend hours on end reading that shit, and then trying to figure out, after I read that for my passage that I was supposed to read that night, I said, what the hell am I supposed to gain from that? Spending hours saying, what enlightened shit am I supposed to gain from that crap? It didn't give me any enlightenment, other than that men should have left that, when they found those books, they should have left that shit out. Because that certainly wasn't very important. And that's why I've often said that probably if they want the best of humanity and the best of what is be perceived as a loving God, they should get men of today, with the knowledge, the scientific knowledge we have, combined with the spiritual knowledge we have. Get them to rewrite the Bible, write a new Bible. Okay, I think I'm finished for this video. I didn't know how long it would really take me, but I did have all the side pieces. It's just that I didn't have them all connected the correct way. So I went and looked at each connection I had made, and then I found a couple of pieces out of place, and that made everything work just perfectly. And I started this out on this sheet of white paper because what I wanted to do, I don't know how it's all going to look, but when I first got these puzzles, I liked all the pictures, and I thought that they would look good in a frame. So I was going to frame one of them, and that's why I started out on this white piece of paper so that I can get the glass out of the frame and put it on top, and then it'll be easier to flip over when I get to that place. But I wanted to stop this now because it's getting way longer than I thought it would be. And I really can't speed this up because if I do, then all my God talk would be, and so I'm not going to do that. I'll just leave it and see if anybody wants to watch paint dry, then that would be good. And they can hit subscribe and that they like the video. And if they don't, well, it won't hurt my feelings. I've got pretty tough skin. Thanks.